The tools that you have given go far beyond just the financial stuff. It just ties in so beautifully with your background as well to help people get to that point and understand. It's like, listen, this is just money. It's a tool. It does not run your life. You get to run it.
Hi, I'm Justin Buonamo, and this is Wisdom is Wealth. Wisdom is Wealth is designed to give you guys practical insights, modern strategies, and even timeless philosophies around gaining wisdom in your life. The wiser we get, the wealthier we will become. This podcast really is inspired by the book of Proverbs in the Bible, which was written by King Solomon, who prayed to God for wisdom and as a byproduct became the wealthiest person to ever live. If he was still alive today in present day, he'd be worth $1.3 trillion with a T. Not because he prayed for wealth, but he prayed to God to give him wisdom. And as he grew wiser, as a byproduct, he grew wealthier, particularly financially, but not just stopping there, in every facet of his life. And in my own life, I have realized that the wealthier I become, it's truthfully just because I have become wiser in life. I'm gonna bring on guests that are incredibly successful, incredibly amazing human beings, and have an amazing financial wealth that they've grown for themselves. And they're gonna share wisdom on their life experience in totality in hopes that something becomes valuable for you to implement in your process, in your life, and in your journey, and see how wisdom truthfully is wealth. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this interview. It is a super special interview today. I have one of my clients, Susan, but she's just become such an amazing friend here with me today. She has been a client inside of the Good Steward program, even before it was called that, but now for close to 3 years. And her transformation is incredible. It's unique. It's inspiring. And I'm super excited to dive into it here today. So, Susan, thank you for being here. Before we hop in, can you briefly describe who you are and what you do?
Okay. My name is Susan Hoykert. I've lived really kind of all over the country because being a preacher's kid. But I wound up putting myself through pharmacy school and had a very successful 35-year career and got out and thought I would like to try something else, entrepreneurial, and kind of figuring that out, but then realized that I never really had gained control around like the financial part. So that's when I was always looking, but when I found Justin, that seemed to be finally the right fit.
Absolutely. If you ask me, match made in heaven.
Yeah.
So it's been awesome to have you. And so I know, 3 years sounds like a long time, but it also at the same time is a short time. And, so much can change and get accomplished in that. And so can you share a little bit about how your financial stress has turned into financial peace as a result of going through the Good Steward program?
Yeah. The stress was such that, you just keep trying to push it down because you don't want to deal with it. I mean, my solution for like all of the trauma around money and everything growing up was just to out earn what I thought I needed. And so I put myself through, organic chemistry and all that stuff. That wasn't easy, but there was a goal that I wanted. And so I did it. And so you get there and you got all this money coming in. And I don't think I was really wasting it at all. I don't think I had like any really bad habits and stuff, but I just wasn't like watching it like I should. And I always felt bad about that. So over the years, I was trying to gain control. I would download apps and I would enroll in programs, usually the free ones, and nothing, I couldn't make myself do it. And when I think I found you on a Facebook ad.
Maybe.
Something. That was the very beginning. I don't even know how. It was a God thing, probably. Yeah. But I just remember thinking, the first thing you don't want to do is get on, on the phone with somebody because you're just like, oh gosh, they're going to try to talk me into it. And that, all of your walls are up about money because you've just got so much trauma around it. And I just, no, everything's smaller. So what happened is I had the talk with you the first day and it was so easy. And I related to your story as well, because I thought, okay, there were things that happened in your childhood too that you couldn't control. And it was interesting, but I still couldn't pull the trigger. And you called me back 10 months later and you said, it's kind of like, hey, if how are you? Where are you? And I'm like, well, pretty much the same place as before. And you said, if you would have signed up, you'd be a little further along. And I was like, golly, he's right. What struck me about this was they didn't start out just giving me a spreadsheet. We really talked, and I've never felt more supported and understood by anybody, because all of a sudden everybody was talking about money in a way that sort of became comfortable. And this was completely new to me, because nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. So that was the biggie to me, was just getting to a point where even if I couldn't complete an assignment, and I would just be honest and say, I just can't. And they're like, okay, let's work on this together. And they would break it down. And then I realized, okay, one thing at a time, one step at a time, because I have a tendency to be all or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember like our first conversations, it was a blessing meeting you. And yes, I think you took a little bit of time to jump in. Everybody has their own duration, or, their own path. Some people jump in 5 minutes on the first call. Some people they've come back to us 3 years later, right? It's all in God's timing. And, but I think God has blessed me with, the skill sometimes to be a little direct when he wants to, Jesus was the best communicator ever, and he blended directness with compassion, right? And so I'm happy that the comment of, well, if you would have joined 10 months ago,
it's like tough love.
Came off the right way.
It was tough love, because the thing is, we already established a relationship that was at least like trusted and friendly enough that you had permission to say that to me, because I knew you weren't, I don't know, I just had a feeling it wasn't just about the money or whatever, because of your story. Because of what you had put in, And then the other part that was holding me back was I thought, well, you're probably just some financial guru guy. And then I find out that your degree was very much like mine. All the sciencey, nerdy stuff. But when you had to learn a bunch of stuff, you found a mentor. And then that person poured into you. And that was the thing that then clicked. So I mean, we know mentoring is important, but it's almost like when the right person comes along, you just know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, well, I appreciate that, and thank you so much for that. And I'm happy that the comfortability around talking about money grew as you joined the program and joined the community. I think something that also grows and shifts when people join our community is their mindset around debt. Would you mind sharing how your mindset around debt kind of changed after working with us?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I went through, and I don't mean to bash Dave Ramsey, because I think he's done a lot of really good things for people, but when he was talking about no debt and you're cutting up your credit cards and everything else, and I remember thinking there was no way I would have gotten through college and through pharmacy school if it weren't for loans and scholarships and grants. And, I thought that really, if you look at my ROI on that, that was a very positive thing. That was good debt, in my opinion, because otherwise, what would I have done? When my uncle went to college and you had to pay your way through and stuff, it took him a long time to get his bachelor's and his master's and his PhD, because he'd be working the summers and maybe a year off in between to earn the money to pay tuition, If I would have had to do that, I guess, I'm just grateful that God had me be born when I was, so that I could make use of these programs, and, paid them back, and very grateful. But how else would I have done that? So I had looked upon debt as the other thing that happens is when you have a problem with credit cards, and then you're thinking, I should never have credit cards because I can't handle them. Well, there's a story right there. And when you realize, like, well, wait a minute, how can we use this? Especially now with the rewards. I don't know. Some of them are just like, I don't really care. But, I look at percentage. I look at how much the percentage is, like how much is the, how much interest are they charging? But also then how can I make better use of moving that over to a lower percentage, paying it off, but keeping the amount open so that my credit score goes up, because I'm using less of the overall amount that I have available to me. That was news to me. I just thought, if I've got 10,000 that they're allowing me, then that's what I'll use. That's a goal. I can use that 10,000. Okay. Not realizing all of the idiosyncrasies of how they come up with your credit score.
Yeah, I think it's you made a lot of really, really good points in there. And I think the one thing that I want to highlight is that, again, nothing against Dave Ramsey. We love him. Great dude,
Yep.
does amazing things for this world. But like, my perspective is a little bit different, where it's like, credit cards, particularly when you have credit card issues or debt issues, right? For one, understanding the difference between good debt and bad debt. You alluded to a very good form of good debt, right? But then bad debt is, credit card debt a lot of times. And so high interest debt from us buying things that we didn't need with money that we didn't have, mm-hmm. right? And so I understand Dave's approach where he's like, cut them up, don't use them, because, that's kind of like the whole don't buy junk food or bring it close to the house and you won't eat it. It does work, right? But my perspective is like, the credit card's not the problem, right? It's a piece of paper or a piece of plastic. And honestly, used the right way, it has a mass amounts of benefits. So instead of almost kind of, I think, downgrading the capability of a human being by telling them, cut them up, don't use them, you're kind of treating them like a child. You're telling them they're irresponsible and kind of pouring salt in the wound a little bit.
In a way.
Instead, my perspective is it's like, let's fix the deeper underlying issue that caused you to utilize the credit cards wrongly in the first place. Probably a little bit of an education issue for sure,
yes.
But there's always something like at a belief level that fuels the behaviors, right? Particularly us getting ourselves into credit card debt. So I always say, let's address things at a belief level, right? To get real long-term results. Cutting up your credit cards, right? It's kind of a Band-Aid over the real problem. Right. And then also, like I mentioned as well, it's you're holding yourself back from, I think, a lot of the benefits that utilizing credit the right way can offer you. And so I think that's a big challenge that a lot of people face when they come to us. And
and realizing that it's not a good thing to close a credit card account.
No, it's not. It hurts you more than it helps.
I thought that was a great idea. So I just wouldn't be tempted, wouldn't be charged, whatever the deal was. And I had no idea. And I thought, why aren't we learning this stuff in school? Now they're starting to talk about that more, but it's like, why aren't we taught like financial plans, whatever? When I would hear some kids, like their dad sat them down and talked about this, and I thought, my dad totally avoided it too.
Yeah. Only in the movies that happens.
Well, some of my friends did, and I thought, don't compare, But for my age group, my parents were like children of the Great Depression. That's a very different experience. You realize when you get older, you start hearing things that you were taught, and you realize that just came out of their own experience. Yeah. And I understand that. But the world's different. We get to learn different things. There are different tools that are out there. It's just having somebody that you can trust, that gives you enough information that you know where to go, but that you don't feel like you have no idea what's going on. That was the other thing. I didn't want to learn about it. There was just too much trauma. So let me just push that off to the side. And when you finally delve into it and realize one whole discussion one day was on HELOC versus home equity loan. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're just talking about money. Oh my gosh, but I was fascinated with how everybody was like open about, well, here's what I was thinking. What do you think? And we're bouncing off each other. And then coming up with something, and then always talk to a financial planner or whatever. But it was so clear cut then when you had the information. And I thought it was like when they give you the pieces and then you put them together, you figure out what works best for you.
Amen. If you guys couldn't tell, I think Susan's trying to mess around and get hired after this interview, get her on as the next coach.
I'll take all the old timers going, listen.
Yeah. I think you've shared some amazing things, but would you mind sharing some tangible results you got as a result of working with us? Like maybe like debt paid off, money saved, investments made or growing, like whatever you feel called to share. I would love to hear that.
I put myself in quite a hole. I wound up, after leaving pharmacy, and after leaving pharmacy, and that was a weird thing, but I'm grateful now in retrospect. At the time, I didn't realize how numb I was. Like I wasn't really happy, but you're making six figures. What are you going to do? I had an opportunity to move to Texas with about 5 other business owners. And we were going to launch like this company in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we instead of getting all these different apartments, we're going to pool our money and live in this mansion, and this will be great. Most of us sold everything. I sold my house. I sold most of my belongings and stuff. And it was interesting how God even worked through that. because I used to hold on to things like this. And I had an experience where I was on a mission trip in Nicaragua, and we left, and then all of a sudden, 4 days later, we're seeing a hurricane coming towards the state of Florida. That was like the cone was taking up the entire state. And I'm sitting there with a friend, and we're like, well, what do you think? And I said, well, we may not have homes to go home to. However, I figure God gave me the home. He can take it away. I said, the only thing is I want to be the first one to be at my pile. And then she said, what would you keep? And I thought, okay, out of all my stuff, my Waterford crystal bowl that my grandmother gave me, recipes that are handwritten, and people, recipes and notes from people that I love that are no longer with us. And I said, that's kind of it. And it was like in that instant, it was like God opened my hand to just go with me. Mm-hmm. And so I thought this whole thing was an Abraham journey. Mm-hmm. So I wound up in your program completely freaked out about where I was financially, like so far under that I couldn't believe it, right? But by then gaining control, calling people that I owed money to and stuff, I paid back $5,400 in the last year, $10,163.28 in the last 2 years. So just, double that, all while going back to tithing. Yep. All while resuming a normal life, and all while living in an apartment that is lovely and actually more than I should be spending on where I live. But I moved in when my business was really thriving and assumed it was all going to be fine. And then when it all kind of crashed, I wasn't ready for that. So I just kept thinking, you know what? God doesn't ever leave you or forsake you. But it's like sometimes you got to go through these journeys. So I regard this whole trip, this whole adventure in Texas as my Abraham journey. And at least like that, right? Abraham didn't know where he was, he's walking through this gate, and I've seen that thing. I've seen the Canaanite gate when I went to the Holy Land. But I at least knew I was going to have internet and stuff in Texas, he didn't know anything, but he had such faith. And I thought, how often do we really get a chance to we believe in God, but do we really believe God when he says, consider the lilies of the field? Like, how much more am I going to give you? You're my child. And honestly, I can sit here and say, I'm well fed. I have a roof over my head. I have a business thriving, and I have other new opportunities that are coming up. And it's just been a different journey than I thought, but certainly one that I think has enriched my life. And so I'm excited because I think then we're gaining speed so I can pay off the rest of it within a year.
Yeah. It sounds like the brilliance of God all throughout that, particularly when you said it's not how you thought it was going to go, but you are happy with how it went. Life only makes sense looking backwards because you see what God was doing the whole time.
Yeah.
And I love your story. And I think, even just the debt payoff stuff, like, some people would kill probably to pay off that amount of debt over a year or 2 years. And why I bring that up is because even before we started interviewing, you're like, I wanted it to be more. But think about it. 95% of people out there, let alone probably listening to this, their debt is growing by that number each year, let alone the money that's getting added on top of it and the stress that's being added to it as well, compared to actually decreasing. Right.
Well, and this is what's so interesting is immediately it's like, my thought was like, geez, if I had my house yet, I could have refinanced this. I could have, and had a bigger number or a lower this and whatever. And I thought, my story is my story. And you start with where you are. And so it's just like, it's a chance to really, when you look at your finances and you really spend time with them, it really gives you a chance to look at like, what's really important to me. And what I realized is all that time that I was making all this money and stuff, I would go out and shop and just waltz around or whatever. It was just like a time waster. And I would convince myself, I would rationalize and say, well, I might need that. It's just a funny thing. I was never like a hoarder or anything like that. I don't, it's just little things that could have been tweaked that would have made a big difference 20, 30 years down the road. but it is what it is. I'm grateful to live in a time when we have the internet and we have all this stuff so that I can totally be building a business, working on passive income. And so, taking care of myself as I get older.
Yeah. I think a big thing for you too is when, you started tracking and seeing what was actually going on, and it gave you that opportunity to then see where your areas of opportunity are.
Yeah.
And so, speaking of tracking, I know it's one of the main things we have you guys do daily and weekly. Can you describe how much to be in our program, how much time does it take you let's just say each week, when it comes to either participating in the program or doing the things that we tell you to do, like budgeting each day?
The budgeting, once you have it all set up, then it's just a matter of you'll tell us to do it 1 to 3 minutes each day. Sometimes, sometimes it's every morning, but sometimes I'll get crazy and put it on first thing, boom. Or now I've on the app. Yeah, let me get that on there now. I don't think it could be more than an hour at the most. If it was over an hour, it's because I was reading something or learning something or taking a module again or something like that. That was a nice thing too, is that your program offers these modules so that if you want to review something, you can go back and review it, which is helpful when you watch it and you're in shutdown and you don't realize it. Some things you're getting through, but then you listen to it again 6 months later and you're like, was that the same one? Did you guys update that?
That's great. That is awesome. I love that you do that too as well, having those modules available. We do a lot of things for you guys, whether it's helping with the initial budget setup, right? Meeting with y'all, depending on what package you have with us, but just having the recordings from the live sessions and the modules. I love when I see people go through this at their own time. I'm like, if you're going to scroll social media for 30 minutes, go listen to one of the recordings, right? Or just even from an even more proactive standpoint, like you said, when you hear something in the same thing in a different season, it lands differently. And my mentor, Jake, tells me all the time, he's like, dude, most of your clients probably don't need more information. They just need the same information multiple times until they actually start to embody it,
Yeah.
And so we're big with that. We want to take you from intellectualizing something to actually embodying it, not just in the short term, but in the long term. And I know that that deeper work is something that usually surprises people about our services at JFF. Is there anything else that, surprised you about our services or maybe even JFF in totality?
Well, first of all, I want to mention the coaches because I started with one coach and then you were growing so quickly that all of a sudden I'm on the third coach. And I remember when they called me and said, okay, now we're going to put you with whatever. And, when you have a really shame-filled story,
sure, I'm with you.
You don't really want to go through this with a whole lot of humans, you want to appear yeah, I got it together. Yeah. And so what struck me was how each of them in their own way was so compassionate. There was no shame. There was no what did I tell you to do? They were always so kind. And it just, for someone like me, it's decades of shutdown. For someone like me, I just feel like that was a God ordained thing, honestly. Because without those girls, I don't know where I'd be, even to the point where I was just I can't even, I was so shut down. And I remember it was Sarah that said, okay, let's just do accounts receivable. Just do that, just that one thing and you're done for the day. Or let's just do, what you're paying out or whatever. It was she really broke it down, not by just the day, let's do 3 days worth of tracking. It was by category. And in a way that was a little more, I don't know, for some reason it just clicked in my brain.
Yeah.
And then I was so glad. I was so proud of myself because then once you start, it's almost like when they saw John Maxwell or something and said, break it down, do it now, break it down, do it now. And I thought, if you just say, let's set the timer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that, and let's see how far you get. And all of a sudden, 10 minutes are up and you're like, I can go again. And then it doesn't take too long and then you're done. And it's focusing on the feeling of what you're going to feel like when you get there. Because whenever I'd be caught up or pay something off or face something, I was just amazed. I have to tell you this one other thing that popped up. Like, I'm in an age where I have Medicare. And what I found out, like by actually being proactive in this, I was offered Medicare Advantage like a couple of years ago. And I thought, oh gosh, this is great. I don't pay anything. And you give me like gym memberships and dental, and all this stuff. Okay, great. And then I find out that's not real Medicare. And so if something happens to you, it's really hard for them to get payment. So I go to regular Medicare. And so all of a sudden now I'm on I pay $135 a month and I don't even use it. You have to get your own vision insurance. You have to get your own dental insurance. So I was postponing this dental emergency that I had. And then I finally called the office because I just really had to talk to myself and do the whole like box breathing, calm, regulate, re-regulate. And I called and explained this to the gal. And I said, if you can give me some guidance on which insurance you would recommend. And she goes, we've got our own plan now that we offer to people. And here are some rates. And they're terrific. Then I ran into a gal that at the store that actually works in a dental office. She said a lot of dentists are doing that now because of like people being out of work, people not having benefits as much anymore. But the dentists want to be able to have people keep their teeth up. And I thought, you know what? If you're just too afraid to ask, you're never going to get, the answer is always going to be no, or you're not going to know. But if you at least ask, you'll be amazed what you find out. But it's really funny how, it helped me one day when one of your clients, who like her business blew up and in 1 month, she made more money than she'd ever made before. And she had paid off a bunch of stuff and she shows up the next week and we're all thinking, once you get to that point, boy, I'll bet everything is easier. She said she opened her budget that morning and she had to do deep breathing. She had to do box breathing to do it. And I thought, okay, it doesn't matter. It's just understand it. Understand that's just how the nervous system works. Your body thinks you're being chased by an animal. It's going to kill you, whatever. So it's okay. But the tools that you have given go far beyond just the financial stuff. And I think it just ties in so beautifully with your background as well to help people get to that point and understand. It's like, listen, this is just money. It's a tool. It does not run your life. You get to run it. But it's been you've been giving it that voice and that power for way too long. So nice try, Satan, nice try. But greater is he who is in me. So
Absolutely. And I think just going back to talking about the girls, the coaches in the program, for one, we've gotten it figured out where, you don't really get bopped around as much, but Susan did come back in, when we were blowing up back in 2022, we didn't know what to do with the amount of clients that were coming in the door. It was an awesome blessing. Yeah. But the girls, inside the Good Steward program, the coaches, the three of them, they are incredible. And I appreciate you bringing that up. I was just praying over them this morning and I was just telling somebody else about them as well. Wow. And I think the amazing part about them is that they're all actually certified coaches. The word coach gets used a lot in the online space, but these girls are actually certified to the International Federation of Coaching. And so when I describe them to people, I'm like, imagine a financial advisor mixed with a money therapist. That's what basically these girls do. And I think because the strategy is so super important, you have to have good financial strategy and systems, have to have the black and white, but it only goes as far as the internal world. Like I always say, your external wealth is just a reflection of your internal wealth. And those girls can sit with you and really help you get those internal breakthroughs, really help heal and come to some serious conclusions that move the needle a heck of a lot better than, a YouTube video, a financial book, or a spreadsheet could do. And so that's, I think a couple of years ago, yes, with my own story, but I asked myself, if I truthfully care about this, if I truthfully care about my people, which I do, how can I get them best results, right? And, the answer was start addressing things at a belief level because our behaviors are just a result of those. Yeah. And so I'm so happy. You're just such a byproduct of that. And so, before we first started this interview, as we come to the end of it, though, we first started and you said you avoided joining for a while. You were on the fence for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And so if someone's on the fence about working with us and they're listening right now, what would you tell them?
Well, it's easy to say just dive in because everybody's going to say that. I think the difference is you will meet people in this program that will be honest about their own journey, that will just encourage you and walk alongside you. They're not going to be kind of lording over you. I really felt like they were partnering with me and cheering me on every single step of the way. I remember trying to, I'm going, well, I did this, but I should have done more. And I think it was Sarah that said, whoa, 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 stop. Actually, Brittany did that too. Whoa, 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 stop. That was significant. Let's stay there. And I thought, you know what? I'm so good at beating myself up over this that I really hadn't stopped to say, stop. I did that. It's paid off. Praise the Lord. But, take that moment to stop. It's the part about the visceral part, the subliminal part that I think is never addressed in any other program that I've seen. But if that isn't addressed, people hear about trauma much more these days, capital T, little t, but that truly can affect people in the financial world. And so that to me was a huge part of it. It's just a very comprehensive, I would say, program. So
thank you.
Yes.
I said comprehensive is such a good word. It's like we address a lot, we take care of a lot. And I think it's designed in a way, in many different ways, to get real long-term results. Like, I don't want it to be the diet plan that you crush for 90 days and you've been getting back on track on Monday for the past 3 years, right? Like, I want real, true change.
Right.
And so I appreciate that comment about the comprehensiveness because, while we are not perfect and while we are growing every single day, I think we've done a really good job over the past 5+ years to build a very effective and successful program. And you're a beautiful byproduct of that. And so I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story. Is there any other final thoughts you want to tell the viewers before we hop off here today?
I would just encourage you, at least get on the phone and talk to Stephanie.
It's Aaron. Well, Aaron and Steph. Depends on the day.
Okay. Aaron and Well, Aaron's the one that's got me going to San Diego because he had the same thoughts that I did last year. This big workshop, and the first thought is, oh well, I can't afford that. Right away, I thought that, and then Aaron went on and he told the story where he said, I thought right away, there's no way I'm going to do this, whatever, and I was like, oh my Lord, he's speaking to me, and I thought, do I have faith or not? And Lord, they just had another payment go yesterday, and I thought, I'm about paid up on this, and I'm excited to see you again in San Diego. So I am in awe in many ways of where I am, but rather look at where you are rather than, where you have to go. But I'm excited to continue to be a good ambassador for this program and make you proud.
Yeah, we've done both of those things very well. And much, much more. You're an awesome human being, and I just appreciate you so much. Like I said before we started recording, you're important to me. So this interview was important to me, and I just thank you so much for coming on and being willing to do it.
Thank you for asking. I was honored.
Of course. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope this inspired you. If you're not subscribed to either the YouTube channel or have downloaded the podcast yet, please make sure to do so, and we'll see you in the next interview.